I want to talk about homeownership a little bit more. Again, there's a new report from Apartment List, 2025 Millennial Homeownership Report. Matt, you're a millennial.
Yep.
I'm a millennial. We both own homes.
Squeaked by.
Congratulations.
Squeaked by before
Squeaked
the
by.
pandemic. But that's not all the case for all millennials.
No,
I hate to break it to you.
It's not. No, I think the way you said it is exactly the way I feel is that we squeaked by. Kind of got right in before prices got crazy.
Yep.
And when you could lock those rates, I mean, now I would just be looking to rent something that's really nice. Probably wouldn't be thinking about buying something. What does this report tell us about, millennials who would be buying homes, but now they're like, is that an option?
No, Apartment says, and here's the quote to enter this source here: millennials are responsible for a substantial share of home purchase during the past year, but on a per capita basis, homeownership rate for millennials have been growing at a slower rate than that of previous generations. And an early look at Gen Z shows the trend is worsening, not improving. Worsening, not improving. There is a little bit of a caveat in that Generation X is making some gains relative to baby boomers, but it is still the real story is this difference between millennial homeownership and Generation X. That's where the real meaningful gap is. And right now we're looking at a line graph of generational homeownership rates from 1985 to 2024, and silent generation is at 70%.
Still alive.
Still alive. And they have declined, though, because they're moving into...
I'm surprised they own so many homes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess this is relative.
There's like aging in place, and they're still with us, and 74% of baby boomers, they have exceeded silent generation, and 74% of baby boomers own their homes, 65% of Gen X, and huge jump down. 47% of millennials own homes, and Gen Z 9% own homes, but that's just because they're so young. I think they haven't reached a meaningful homeownership stage yet.
No, absolutely.
But these drop-offs from boomer to millennial to Gen Z, they can be partly explained by that age difference. However, by age 30, and we're looking at this right now, by age 30, 55% of silent generation members owned a home. Jumped down 7% points to baby boomers. 48% when they were 30, they owned a home. Jumped down 6% points to Gen Xers. So that's a smaller jump. So that's what I mean when it seems like Gen Xers are kind of making a little bit of gains. They're converging among those. Yeah. The real gap is millennials. 33% own home. That's 11% difference from Gen Xers. That's the real gap, and it's one that may continue with Gen Z. We'll have to see. I wonder if there's a cluster of those top three generations: silent, baby boomer, Gen X, and then millennial and Gen Z may be clustered together in terms.
I think the millennials and Gen Zs are going to be clustered. What this shows is that we have more individuals that are renting for longer. Mm-hmm. For every percentage point, that represents tens of thousands of renters who would have been buying a home, but now are going to choose to rent something for the next couple of years, which puts more pressure on supply and increases demand overall. Yeah. And this trend was already taking place as, it was breaking out between silent generation baby boomers and Gen Xers, but it's been exacerbated. Yeah. The millennial generation, the great financial crisis, I think kickstarted it, put millennials behind a couple of years. I mean, couldn't get a job, graduating college, and we've talked about that before.
And if you scroll down to the final graph they have in this, it shows how the Generation X, as they got old, they had a much sharper increase in home ownership than millennials. Now, millennials have kind of
by the time they're almost 60.
And millennials have kind of caught up to Gen X, but recently there's been some shakiness. So I don't think that the story is completely told. And that number for millennials, it looks like it's intersected Gen X, but as the millennials age and that average age of the 40-year-olds or the 43-year-olds, that's going to shake out. So I think that the millennials will actually not converge as much with Generation X as as the years go by. So they say that millennial ownership is catching up to Gen X, but I don't think that story is near finished being told. I think that if anything, they could diverge even further. What the real convergence is, I think, is between Gen X, baby boomer, and silent generation. But Who knows? I always feel like everything bad is happening to millennials, and some people don't think enough about Gen X, but it's good to know that at least they're owning homes and they're being, there some good things are happening to Gen X. They didn't get all the attention.
Yeah.
But
they were a little neglected.
they own all the homes.
They were a little neglected, but they own a decent amount of homes now.
Yeah.